Well, good afternoon, everyone. This is Mike O'Malley here with the off-season edition of the Hurricane Outlook and Discussion for May the 11th, 2020. This recorded around 3:50 p.m. Eastern Time. Well, the Eastern Pacific has certainly continued to cool off pretty rapidly here over the last several days and weeks, and we've really seen that transition into more of what seems to be a La Nina type environment. And this is going to set up for what could be a pretty active Atlantic hurricane season this year, coupled with the very warm main development region of the Atlantic, with sea surface temperature anomalies running roughly between a half a degree to a degree of Celsius above the long-term average. And this could set up for what could be a very significant 2020 Atlantic hurricane season. And again, there is some support that we could be seeing a very busy hurricane season. So again, it is never too early to start preparing for hurricane season 2020 and any hurricane season in general, as once again, it could be pretty busy. Taking a look, this is the 5-day data. This is from the Equatorial Pacific, looking over the Nino 3.4 region, and more specifically the ENSO conditions across the region. And we've really noticed that over the last several weeks, this was updated today, May the 11th, we've really started to see a lot of this upwelling begin to occur. All these blue anomalies down here, these are cooler than normal anomalies, and they have started to really surface their way from about 200 meters all the way up to the surface of the water across the portions of the Eastern Pacific and the Nino 3.4 regions. And we've really seen that happen with the Atlantic, or not the Atlantic, the Eastern Pacific cooling significantly over the last several weeks. And this is just another way to look at it. This is from cyclonicwx.com, and this is from May the 10th. This was updated yesterday. This is the 15-day sea surface temperature change, anomaly change, and you do notice that most of it throughout this region is cooler than normal, roughly about 2.5 to about near 3.5 degrees Celsius falling, and it continues to really fall. And that's going to set up, like I said, for what could be a fairly active Atlantic hurricane season. Usually, when the Eastern Pacific Basin is shut down, the Atlantic Basin usually takes over. Put a green check mark there, and things are getting ready to pop off the lid, basically, per se. We're literally right around the corner before the 2020 Atlantic hurricane season starts, and again, you need to have a plan in place to prepare now for hurricane season 2020. So we're taking now a look. This is from Ben Knoll out in New Zealand, and this is the JMA 200, the 200 HPA velocity potential anomalies. The brown and sort of more orangish areas, these are sinking anomalies, and the bluish green type colors, these are the rising anomalies. And this is labeled pretty nicely. Over across most of the Eastern Pacific Basin, we have sinking anomalies. This would suppress any hurricane development out here, while for the most part we have neutral to some rising conditions across the main development region of the Atlantic, which would certainly promote hurricane development. And this is for June. This is through June and August of 2020. So this will go through the last part of the 2020 Atlantic hurricane season. And again, this shows the potential for what could be a fairly significant busy year. So again, you need to have a plan in place. If you live in an evacuation zone, know where you're going to evacuate. If you're living in a floodplain area or a flood zone, make sure you have flood insurance. And we'll cover that as we get closer to time to the hurricane season starting. So this is updated today. This is from Michael Ventris, and we do have a convectively coupled Kelvin wave. Basically, that's just rising air in the atmosphere parked over portions of the Caribbean and the southern part of the Gulf of Mexico areas down there. And across the Atlantic main development region, we have sinking anomalies. That is expected for this time of the year. We do not expect any development from the main development region this time of year. But going forward into week number 1, This continues through this week. We do have that convectively coupled Kelvin wave eject across portions of the Atlantic. This drier sinking anomalies will shift further east across portions of Africa, and this could set the stage for what could develop across the Bahamas and off the southeastern United States coast later this week. We'll touch on that here in just a minute. And then by week number 2, we see that convectively coupled Kelvin wave stretch out through most of the Atlantic main development region, but keep in mind, wind shear is still really roaring across this area. These westerly winds of 70 to 80 knots of wind shear, that's going to prevent really anything from getting to go. And we still have some Saharan air layer that's kind of covered throughout that area, so the main development region will not light up, but we could see something across the southeastern United States. And this is the European mean MSLP tracks here. This is out valid through the 21st of May, out through forecast hour 240 for the European models. This is Bermuda out here. This is Florida riding along the southeast United States coast, just to orient yourself. And again, we do have some weak support for some system to develop across this region later into next week, and potentially looking forward to where it might potentially go. This is just the start of what could be an active hurricane season 2020, but like I said, for the most part, this is going to be a weak, disorganized system. We do not expect this to turn into a major hurricane or anything of that nature, but certainly it doesn't hurt to start paying attention to the tropics. If you live along the southeastern United States, if you live in the Bahamas, if you even live in Bermuda, anywhere that's prone to hurricanes, it is time to start paying attention. We are only a couple of weeks away from the Atlantic Basin starting, and this Friday, May 15th, the Eastern Pacific hurricane season starts. So we're getting into that time of year where early season activity is almost a given, or is expected per se, in the Atlantic. Over the last 5 years, we've seen storms develop before June 1st. So this is something that we're going to have to really pay attention to as we go in through portions of next week and beyond. Now, officially from the National Hurricane Center, they have not noted anything. There is no official areas in the Eastern Pacific or the Atlantic, Caribbean, or Gulf of Mexico that we have to worry about at this time. But taking a look here at some of the model data, this is the 12Z GFS starting valid conditions as of 7 a.m. this morning. And you do notice what brought what little rain actually to portions of South Florida. We were expecting a big rain event, and that just never really materialized as thought. But that system is stretched out along with its vorticity across still portions of the Bahamas and the Florida Keys, and that is going to continue to drifting off over the next couple of days. As we start to get into more of a return flow, we're going to be watching this area in the Bahamas down here for what could be some piece of vorticity to develop right over the Bahamas and just to the southeast of the Florida Keys and Miami. We could be watching a little system trying to organize its way down there and eventually tighten up into somewhat of a subtropical or some sort of tropical low out across portions of the southwestern Atlantic really over the next couple of weeks or so. This is forecasted as of next Sunday for about 8 o'clock in the morning or 7 o'clock in the morning. You do notice this little itty bitty low with its elongated vorticity is not really well defined, and that continues to show. We'll only go up to about 150 hours, but generally that continues to kind of meander right across the southwestern Atlantic as we start to see a breakdown in this ridge that may allow this to go out to sea, and that is generally what we are thinking. Taking a look at the European ECMWF models, this is the European forecast about 12Z today, 8 o'clock or 7 o'clock in the morning today. You do notice as we go throughout time, this is Thursday, now we're heading into Friday. We do see some energy starting to build back in throughout portions of the southeastern United States and the Florida area. That vorticity is still pretty elongated, but notice as we head down towards next Sunday, we have this little concentrated area near the Bahamas and just off the Florida coast that will continue to kind of meander its way across the southwestern Atlantic And this in turn would bring, on the back side of it, this would bring in some rain showers to the Florida coast here. The much needed rain showers, that's for sure. Also notice this piece of vorticity coming off here into the Dixie Alley area. This will provide and maybe pave the way for some severe weather threat there. But for the most part, we are definitely starting to monitor what could be an interest of development here across the southwestern Atlantic. And if we go out to about 18Z Monday, about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, there is still some really bits of elongated vorticity. But generally, this will stay well away from really the Florida coast. However, there could still be some rain showers that come in on the back side of this, assuming this is a closed low, and that flow is out of that direction there, coming on the back side of it, leading towards some showers across the Florida coast. But again, this is still so far out in time. And if we look here, this is the UK Met model. This is valid as of 1 o'clock this afternoon. You notice that there's a little bit of stretch vorticity across the Florida Keys there, stretching out to the southwestern Atlantic. And really we're watching for that bit of return flow moisture coming out of the southwestern Atlantic and the Caribbean. And if we move it out then to roughly about 108 hours, we notice this little kink of vorticity, and move it out to 120 hours. This is forming across the southwestern Atlantic and the Bahamas, south of the Grand Bahama Island and Freeport, and that continues to move off towards the southwestern Atlantic and move off towards the north and east. So there's a lot of different things that could happen. There's certainly a lot of different possibilities. But like I said, hurricane season 2020 is really right around the corner. The main development region of the Atlantic is warmer than average, with a La Nina type environment setting up across the eastern Pacific and the ENSO regions. This has the signs of what could be a fairly active hurricane season, and of course we will stay right on top of everything here. We have a lot of cool things upcoming for this upcoming hurricane season, this 2020 Atlantic hurricane season. We have a lot of cool technology and a lot of cool things that are going to be happening this year. So stick around and you'll get to find out what exactly it is that we're going to be doing. Hope you all have a safe rest of your afternoon. This is Michael O'Malley, and I will see you guys on Thursday.